Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
So, a large part of India, which was not born when the software revolution started, should know that the branding that India has today of a tech superpower was created by a team of committed technology entrepreneurs, and Mr. Narayana Murthy was one of the first fountainheads of that revolution and that idea that we have today, that India, when you see Indians at the top of global corporations, when you see India in the list of tech powers, a large part of that credit goes to people like Mr. Narayana Murthy. So, sir, that gives us a segue to.
Sure.
So I wrote in my book saying that what tech did for India, the software companies, is what Sony and Panasonic did for Japan in terms of the branding image. In the new India that we see around us, is India getting its branding right? How do you see, and what is your idea of the new India?
Well, we all want India to be known as a country that signified the age-old Sanskrit saying that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is, the whole world is one family. And second, Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu, that is, let everybody on this planet be happy. I think India's leadership has to be based on these two extraordinary principles that were enunciated probably 3,000 or 4,000 years ago in Sanskrit. Now, in order to do that, we have to conduct ourselves as people with wisdom, as people with compassion, as people who have done well in seizing opportunities in science and technology, in arts and culture, and as people who welcome visitors from all over the world. I would like India to be such a country. Let me stop here. Yeah.
Thank you. That's like the most succinct vision statement that you could get for the idea of New India. One of the aspects that the world is talking about, we're looking at, is India's entrepreneurial spirit and also the gung-ho spirit of the youngsters.
Yeah.
And so, typically in the media world, that gung-ho spirit is represented by the idea of Startup India, the idea of startups, unicorns, soonicorns. I mean, Bangalore is coming up with new phraseology for those. So how do you see that evolving, the entire? Do you see the startups addressing the needs of India? Do you see the startups as a promising pathway for India's, because now India is being talked about as a $5 trillion economy and a $10 trillion economy. And typically when you started Infosys, it was created to solve problems in India and the rest of the world that arose out of adoption of technology. So are the startups providing those kind of solutions for addressing the issues of India?
Well, when we founded Infosys in 1981, the primary objective for us was to leverage the market opportunity in the developed world, particularly in the United States, to create good quality jobs in India. Because at that time, in 1981, when we founded Infosys, there were a lot of engineers, even from IITs, who were without jobs. So that was our objective at that time. Now, today, the entrepreneurs have gone way past that idea. They have realized that India has need for better education. Therefore, you have companies like Baiju trying to bring the power of online education to the remote parts of India. You have healthcare. You have lots of startups in the area of providing good quality health, online services. Then you have transportation, and you have companies like Ola and others, which have done a good job in providing urban transportation. In other words, today the entrepreneurs are a lot more sophisticated than we were. And they are trying to solve some of the basic needs of our country. That is, better transportation, better infrastructure, better telecommunication, better mobile communication, better data communication, better access to restaurants, online access to restaurants. In other words, you name it, they're doing. However, is this sufficient? I think most of these ideas have been borrowed from the US. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying anything wrong. However, the time has come for our country to become a nation that will introduce some new applications that have not happened anywhere else in the world. That's when we can claim that innovation and invention are alive and kicking in this country, that our entrepreneurs are at the leading edge, and they are pushing that leading edge. Therefore, my hope for the country, my desire for our entrepreneurs is that they should start using ideas that have not been thought of anywhere else in the world, particularly in the developed world, and then say, these are our problems, and therefore we will be the first one in the world to start thinking of our problems. That's my desire.
That's very interesting, because what you're sort of in your larger mentor role, you're saying that we need to find path-breaking ideas for India to forge ahead.
Yeah.
Would you say that the idea of the world's largest biometric identity system, which your colleague and protege Nandan Nilekani spearheaded, would you say UPI, which is the payments gateway that we have got, would they fall in that category?
Well, I think in some sense, yes. There is no doubt about it. Definitely Aadhaar and UPI, Paytm based on UPI or whatever, Bheem or whatever it is. They're all definitely great ideas. But remember one thing. The components of all these things, or even the whole idea of an identity, has already been implemented elsewhere. but nowhere has it been implemented on this scale. I think that is the beauty of Aadhaar, for which we are all very grateful. But, for example, this online payment stuff, mobile payment system was first tried in Kenya, you know very well. It was very successful in Kenya. And we have modified it and adopted it, for which we are all very grateful. There is nothing wrong with that. But I do want people to say that these are the unique problems of India, and we will tackle them, and in the process, we'll create jobs and we will create wealth for investors. That's what I meant as our aspirational target.
So in your role as somebody who funds startups, who sort of guides a lot of entrepreneurs, in your conversations, have you come across anybody in sort of looking at this? Or if you were to sort of advise them onto areas that they could look at, or functions that they could look at, can you share some thoughts on if you're looking at something that could be potentially a game changer, potentially a pathfinder?
Well, we have a few of those ideas espoused by entrepreneurs. We have worked with them. Let me just talk about one of them. One of the entrepreneurs, who is a PhD from MIT, he is working on an inexpensive diagnosis system for several diseases. And he is looking at the Indian earning power. He is looking at that costing a small fraction of that. I don't want to go further into this because I don't want to, there may be some classified issues with, which he would obviously not want me to discuss.
But sounds very exciting. I mean, the idea of a diagnosis system, it sounds fantastic considering our requirements for healthcare, for population scale healthcare. Now, coming to the context of the global economy, the uncertainty, there's conversations about funds not taking up the second round or third round. Do you think that availability of capital is a challenge for the young entrepreneurs, for the startups?
I personally feel that it is not. I am quite used to the situation where there is extreme competition for obtaining funding in an environment of intense competition. Now, a couple of years ago, there was abundant funding. There were all kinds of investors coming to India. They had made money elsewhere easily or whatever it is, and they wanted to invest huge sums in India. And they did that. Now, today, that funding has dried up. Therefore, our entrepreneurs who are very bright, very smart, will have to realize that the threshold has been raised. Threshold for obtaining funding has been raised. So now they will have to establish their differentiation vis-a-vis other existing ideas in the marketplace even higher. Once that differentiation is high enough, the venture capitalists will be interested in looking at those ideas. And I have no doubt at all that an idea which has true value to India, which has market in India, and which is handled by entrepreneurs who have a desire to control their costs so that as early as possible, they will take the company to a positive cash flow situation. I think they will definitely, there are enough VCs ready to fund them.
Do you see a role for the government? I mean, in the US, the GPS and internet and all came out of the DARPA program. Do you see, and Mariana Mazzucato, the economist, has written a lot about this, do you see a role for the state, for the government to sort of step in? Is that advisable, or that could create moral hazards?
Well, let's remember that Aadhaar has given birth to a lot of applications in financial inclusion, in finance, in other areas of finance. So I think we already have a good example of how a foundation laid by the government, and then the APIs have been clearly and transparently provided, and there is a market, there is a field where the government operates as an impartial referee. I think the entrepreneurs will fight it out and succeed. I think, as I said, Aadhaar is a good example. UPI, which NPCI has introduced, that's also a very good example. So they're all possible. However, my general advice to entrepreneurs is that no matter where they are operating in the world, whether it's India, US, Japan, it is better that they focus on the market first rather than taking government as the primary market. There's a very important reason, and that is the purpose of the government is to use tax money efficiently for public goods. And when you are thinking of public goods, when you are looking at a public governance system in any country, there is a huge focus on reducing the cost. There is a huge focus on providing the service to a lot of people. Third, because the primary focus of the government is on established public good services or public goods, the time taken for a new idea is somewhat long. That happens in India, it happens in US, it happens everywhere. It's nothing to do with a specific country. So therefore, my suggestion to entrepreneurs is to focus on the market outside the government, for them to test their ideas, and then they will grow very fast. Because otherwise, if these youngsters are caught up in the whirlpool of decision making in the public governance system, and they get frustrated because of the natural delays in the system, then they may lose key employees. They may not be able to satisfy the investors. So my request is, yes, government is a very important contributor. However, government has bigger targets, bigger purposes than just your idea. So first focus on the market, and when it is succeeded, then you can start providing it to the government, because then you can afford to put up with the delays and things like that. That's what I would say.
So for these startups, for entrepreneurs, for industry to operate, the political economy has to have invested some in skills and training and availability of manpower or skilled people. You pioneered the idea of on-campus training and stuff.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a question which is really in two parts. One part is, do you see the landscape sufficiently enabling this kind of entrepreneurship? Do we have people who are properly trained, educated? Because a lot of times you hear on industry saying that the employability of some of the youngsters is not good. The second part refers to a sort of cult that has come up, which you spoke about a couple of days back, which is the idea of work from home 3 days a week, the idea of what's now known in Bangalore and elsewhere, in Pune especially, of the moonlighting phenomena. So just two parts, quick thoughts on that.
Well, you know, that the two questions you asked, first one is the relevance of training programs, education programs mounted by the corporations within their own premises.
And also, sir, general, is the education system delivering or producing the kind of educated people? This is one major factor.
Absolutely. You know, I would say from my own experience of having worked with probably 150,000 employees, that there is probably top 10 to 20% of the students who are smart, who are bright, who are as good as anywhere else, and they fit in, they have the employability, they fit in very quickly and very easily. They are not the problem. But the majority of the students coming out of the Indian education system, they are exam oriented. They have been brought up on the staple diet of coaching classes. They do not study throughout the year. They wake up when the examination is coming and they solve some problems and pass the exam and they forget it. I mean, that has been my experience. Look, I may be wrong, I don't know. Others, it may not be there. But whatever I have seen with a majority of the people at Infosys, that's the thing. So these youngsters need lot of internal coaching before they become employed. That's why we run a 24-week training program in the areas that they were supposed to have learned in their colleges. Now the second issue you spoke about is the moonlighting, work from home, etc. I have a different take on that, and that is, for the first time in the history of this country, in the last 300 years, India has received some respect for primarily its software services, but in a few other areas too. And this is the time for us to consolidate on whatever respect we have received and make sure that we grow that respect. And there's only one way of doing it. That is to work hard, to be disciplined, to innovate further, etc. And my own personal view is that from my own experience, from the experience of many people that I have seen, it is rather difficult to do it from home. Also, if you want to build a culture of an organization, and that culture building is only possible if we all come together in physical form. So therefore, for many of these reasons, I am not enthusiastic about working from home. You know, of course, moonlighting is unethical. I mean, I don't need to say that. Everybody knows that. You cannot be part of two institutions because there may be classified information that may go from company A to company B. I need not even spend my time on that. All of you know it's not ethical. So I would say that I want our youngsters who are so much smarter than me to realize that this is an extraordinary opportunity given to them, and this opportunity was not given to me when I was their age. Therefore, they have to seize this opportunity and make our nation even stronger. And to do that, a lot of hard work, a lot of discipline, a lot of sacrifice of personal time, all of that would be needed, and that is best done in an environment of physical proximity, and that creates a certain culture. Therefore, I would request the youngsters to focus on working from the office. Also, home is for spending time with family, and office is for spending time with colleagues. That's the way I have been brought up. So that's my mindset. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but that's my view.
So, in your long and illustrious career, you have advised your colleagues, you advised other corporations, you advised the government, you have sort of mentored several people. And now you are in a unique situation or position, I must say. Perhaps you get a lot of advice from people who tell you what to advise the current UK Prime Minister. Do you get that kind of thing? And in your learnings, is there something interesting or something insightful, specific that the UK Prime Minister, Mr. Rishi Sunak, has sought from you?
No, I think, I have retired from Infosys in 2014. I retired from Catamaran in 2021 when I completed my 75th year. So I don't involve myself in any business activities. I'm also not involved in advising anybody because I'm just a citizen, and the senior people in the government, the Prime Minister and others, they have umpteen number of qualified advisors. So therefore, they don't need advice from anybody like me. So I don't spend any time on any of those because that's not my job, and there are better people to do that.
So I want to press the point a little further. But your professional role, you may have retired, but in your personal role, you cannot retire from a personal role. So I just wanted to press the point as the young Prime Minister in Britain sought any advice? If you were been asked any advice, have you given any advice?
No, I think I am a foreigner. Therefore, it is not proper on my part to advise the Prime Minister of a foreign country. I don't do that. Further, I think in 2015, when our son-in-law entered politics, Sudha and I on one side and Rishi's parents on the other side, we had a discussion and we decided and we communicated to both our daughter Akshita and the son-in-law that as a matter of principle, we will never ever discuss any political issue with them, because we have kept our relationship only to a personal relationship. Beyond that, and our grandchildren are our link. So that's what I would say.
That is a template for integrity that you just heard. It's amazing. I think one more round of applause for Mr. Narayana Murthy.
Thank you. Thank you.
A final word for young India, if you were to give them a mantra.
No, I mean, if you see the countries around the world, whether it was Germany and Japan after World War II, or other countries like Singapore and Malaysia in our own midst, they all realized that the only instrument a country has to enhance the prosperity of the country, to improve the income of its citizens, is to work hard, is to show discipline, is to have high aspirations, is to imbibe certain values and perform, because performance leads to recognition. Recognition leads to respect, and respect leads to power. It could be economic power, mostly economic power. And economic power is at the foundation of all other powers. Social power, other respect, all of that. If you do well economically as a nation, then automatically people will respect you more and more and more. So my fervent plea to the youngsters in the country is that they should realize that performance is the only instrument they have. Therefore, they should work very, very, very hard. They should be ultra disciplined, and they should have high aspirations and make this country truly realize its potential, because so many times in the last 40 years I have heard India has potential, India has potential, India has potential. But that doesn't mean anything. Only if we convert that potential into a reality, into a success, then the world will respect us even more. Today there is a certain level of respect for India, no doubt, compared to what it was in the 60s and 70s when I was abroad. But because we have tasted that respect, we have tasted that success, I would request that our youngsters consolidate on that respect And the only instrument we have is economic power, and therefore they have to work hard, they have to be disciplined, they have to have high aspiration, they have to high value. That's all what I would say.